Hi, so I'm going to carry on reading from Richard R. Hawkins' book, The Eye of the Eye, from which nothing is hidden. Today, I'm in the second chapter now, which is the resumption of earthly life. I'm going to jump in a bit further into it while you get yourself comfortable. Or shall I? He's talking about how he is when things transform for him. I gather. So, I just don't want the story bit. Yeah. Okay. The perceptual world has been replaced. Identity had shifted from being a limited subject, a personal I, to unlimited context. Everything was transformed and revealed beauty, perfection, love and innocence. Everyone's face shone forth with the glow of inner beauty. Every plant revealed itself as an art form. Each object was a perfect sculpture. All exists effortlessly in its own place, and everything is sequenced in synchronicity. The miraculous is continuous. The details of life mysteriously accommodate themselves spontaneously. The energy of the presence effortlessly accomplishes the seemingly impossible and brings about phenomena that the ordinary world would consider miraculous. And then he goes on to describe where a number of really incredible events happened that happened spontaneously and with regularity. And such phenomena as clairvoyance, distance viewing, telepathy and psychometry were common. And there was an automatic knowing of what people were thinking and feeling before they spoke. Divine love prevailed as the organising power and was an all-present stage upon which all phenomena occurred. An extremely powerful energy, talking about the physical body, an extremely powerful energy ran up the spine and the back into the brain where it would centre, depending on where attention was focused. The energy then passed down over the face and into the region of the heart. This energy was exquisite and would sometimes flow out into the world where there was human distress. And he talks about times where this had an amazing effect on people and events around him. And that people that witnessed the events, if they had also gone through this kind of change, they would accept these phenomena as happening. But if they, those that were not or open to the presence, would kind of deny of what they'd seen almost. After the major transformation of consciousness, the presence determines all actions and events. A permanent alteration of consciousness establishes itself and is constantly present in its stillness and silence. Even though the body talks and functions in the world, over the years, with effort, there develops a capacity to focus on various levels as is required at the time to be able to function within the world. If allowed to be silent, peace takes over completely and brings on a state of quiet, infinite joy. By withdrawing interest from the external world and the ordinary functions of perception, the infinite bliss state prevails and can only be curtailed by intense focus on the ordinary world. The self is beyond time and form, and within it the ordinary consciousness is potentially able to simultaneously function in a worldly manner. There was a difficulty in considering the world of ordinary perception to be real and taking it seriously. This led to a sort of permanent capacity to see the world from a humorous viewpoint. Ordinary life seemed to be an endless comedy, so that even seriousness itself was humorous. it became necessary to quell expressions of the sense of humour that some people were unable to accept because they were so deeply involved in the perceptual world of negativity. Most people seem to have a vested interest in the negativity of their perceptual world and resist leaving it for awareness on a higher level. People seem to derive sufficient satisfaction from their endless anger, resentment, remorse, and self-pity to actively resist moving on to such levels as understanding, forgiveness, or compassion. There seems to be sufficient gain in negativity so as to perpetuate ways of thinking that are obviously illogical and self-serving, much as politicians distort the truth in order to gain votes, or criminal prosecutors suppress evidence of the innocence of the accused in order to obtain a conviction. When these negative gains are relinquished, the world becomes an endless presence of intense beauty and perfection, and love dominates all of life. Everything is self-luminous, and the joy of its divine essence shines forth, radiating through its all-present formlessness, which is expressed in the perceptual world as form. There is no further need to know anything, because there is no further need to know when one is actually all that exists. The mind in its ordinary state merely knows about. That is no longer necessary when one is everything that can be. The identity, which replaced the former sense of I, has no parts or divisions. Nothing is excluded from its totality and its allness. The self has become the essence, not different from the essence of everything. In non-duality, there is neither a knower nor that which is known, because they have become one and the same. Nothing is incomplete. Omniscience is self-completion. There is no desire for the next second of experiencing that propels the ordinary mind, which, from moment to moment, always feels incomplete. The sense of completeness prevails with the physical senses. Desire and anticipation disappear, and pleasure arises out of the activity itself, because the experience of time has stopped. There is no experience of a succession of events to be anticipated or regretted. Each moment is total and complete within itself. The condition of beingness replaces all sense of past, present, or future, so that there is nothing to anticipate or try to control. This is part and parcel of the profound state of peace and stillness. All needs and wants stop with the cessation of any sense of time. The presence, with its infinite stillness, has displaced all mental and emotional activity. The body becomes self-propagating and merely another property of nature that functions by responding to the flow of conditions. Nothing moves or acts independently of the entire universe. In absolute concordance, all lives moves and has its existence in the absolute perfection, beauty, and harmony. In absolute concordance, all lives moves and has its concordance in absolute perfection, beauty, and harmony of all that is. Motivation as the basis for action disappeared. The phenomena of life were now of a different dimension and were observed as though one were in a different realm. Everything occurs of its own, in the state of inner stillness and silence, activated by the love that expresses itself as the universe and everything in it. The beauty of life shines forth as infinite joy and happiness, infinitely peaceful and beyond emotion. The peace of God is so complete and total that there is nothing left to desire or want. Even experiencing has ceased. In duality, there is an experiencer, and separately that which is experienced. In non-duality, this is replaced by having become all that is, so that there is no separation in time, space, or subjective experience between the experiencer and that which is experienced. In the non-duality of awareness, even sequence no longer occurs, and awareness replaces experiencing. There is no longer the experience of moments, as there is only a continuous now. Movement appears as slow motion, as though suspended outside of time. Nothing is imperfect. Nothing actually moves or changes. No events actually take place. Instead of sequence, there is the observation that everything is in a stage of unfolding, and that all form is only a transitional epiphenomenon created by perception and the observational habits of mentation. In reality, all comes into being as an expression of the infinite potentiality of the universe. Evolving states are the consequences of conditions, but are not caused by them. Conditions account for appearances, and the phenomena as change are really the result of an arbitrary point of observation. From the viewpoint of singularity, there appears to be multiplicity, but from the omnipresence of simultaneous multiplicity, there is only the singularity of oneness. Omnipresence obliterates any perceptual artifact of either singularity or multiplicity. In reality, neither condition exists. There is neither here nor there. There is neither now nor then. There is neither past nor future. There is neither complete nor incomplete, nor is there becoming in that which is already and totally self-existent. Time itself is an arbitrary point of observation, as is the speed of light. Our customary attempts to describe the universe can be seen not as a description of the universe, but instead as a description of arbitrary points of observation, and really as a map of how the ordinary mind works. What is actually being described is not an objective, self-existent universe, but merely the categories of mentation of the mind and the structures and forms of its sequential processing. The limitation of science, then, is preordained by the limitations imposed by the perceptual world of duality. Perception itself is self-limiting, in that it can only know about rather than know. Science is not expected to reach beyond the limits of perception, nor should it be faulted for failing to do so. It can only take us to the threshold of awareness, which does not depend on perception at all. In actuality, science progresses by scientific intuition, with the logic and proof coming afterwards. We customarily call these intuitive leaps creativity, which supersede logic and energize progress. Thus, discovery is the real mainspring of the evolution of society. In the state of awareness, the mind has become silent. Logical or sequential thought has stopped, and instead there is silence and stillness and a continuous, effortless unfolding and presentation as revelation. Knowingness unfolds of itself, and the divinity of all that is silently shines forth as self-evident and self-effulgent. All stands forth in complete and continuous revelation. There is no need to seek or get, for everything already is in its totality and completeness. All seeming action takes place on its own. There is no doer behind action, in that the mythical entity that one has always assumed was the wellspring of experience had disappeared and dissolved into the absolute oneness of the universe. The self, in its totality and completeness, is beyond and before all worlds, universes, or time, dependent on nothing and caused by nothing. The self is beyond existence, neither subject to existence nor non-existence, beginning nor ending, time nor space. It cannot even be included in the concepts of is or is not. The self is neither manifest nor unmanifest, and is beyond any dimensions implied by such categorization of concepts. The capacity to operate cogently in the world of ordinary experience required some major adjustments. There is a continuity and oneness between the realms of duality and non-duality, and non-duality pervades all duality. The limitation within duality is really one of awareness. The limitation of awareness appears to be the consequence of focus. Human beings are seen to be innocent due to their extreme unawareness and unconsciousness of their reality. In this state, they are run by programming and illusory belief systems. At the same time, the purity of spirit shines forth as their intrinsic beauty. It might be said in modern terms that people are run by their software programs, of which they are unconscious. Each person is in the process of the evolution of consciousness, with some more evolved than others. Each one represents the unfolding of consciousness under different conditions, and therefore has different levels of appearance. It is as though each person is caught in a certain level and cannot proceed to another level without the consent, decision, and agreement of the will. The intrinsic innocence is because, comparably, the person is like the hardware, and their actions and beliefs are like the software. The hardware is unaffected by the software programs that they are following blindly, without awareness of significance or consequence of these actions. Classically, the unconscious software programs are called karma. The state in which ordinary people operate does not imply any moral fault or defect, but merely represents the possibilities of the fields of consciousness, as they express themselves through each living entity. Although in reality there is neither good nor bad, it is obvious that all actions do have consequences. Behind the apparent differences, there is actually only the reality of the one self, shining forth as the source of life in all that lives. Each entity lives in the stop frame of this instant, which is all there actually is beyond their awareness. In non-duality, in no one instant can any such thing as a problem, conflict, or suffering occur. These all arise in anticipation of the next instant or recall of the past. The ego appears to be the product of fear, and its purpose is to control the next instant of experience and ensure its survival. It seems to vacillate between fear and the future, and regret over the past, and the desire and sense of time that repel action stems from the illusion of lack. With a sense of completion, desire ceases. That which believes it is finite fears for its survival, for it is its subject to time and the illusions of causality. When the usual motivations of life disappeared, it became effortless. What had been the personality was now only a vague propensity that seemed to know how to mimic ordinary behaviour from a recollection of those patterns. But its ongoingness stemmed from a different source. What had previously been considered to be personal was now obviously impersonal. For one thing, the real self could not really explain itself to others. What to this self was reality, rock-like and substantial when expressed in words? It sounded abstract or philosophical to ordinary people who were run by concepts and sequential thought patterns. What seemed mystical to the average person was merely concrete, subjective reality. It took effort to re-energize ordinary thought patterns in order to facilitate verbal communication. The real I is beyond consciousness itself, but can radiate down as the capacity to move out of bliss into worldly activity. Love becomes the sole motivator of the continuance of physical existence. During the transition, the body felt a considerable strain, as though the nervous system was having to handle more energy than it was originally designed to do. The body's nerves often felt as though they were high tension wires burning with high voltage energy and current. This eventually required moving away from the big city and the life that went with it to a small town in the west that had, over the years, attracted people who were dedicated to a non-materialistic, spiritually oriented life. Now meditation could take the place of activity and the bliss state would return, resulting in what appeared to be an ascetic lifestyle, only because there were neither needs nor wants. There was a time of even forgetting to eat, as though the body were very peripheral, or perhaps not even in existence. One could pass a mirror and be surprised that there was even a body image there. There was no interest in the events of the world, a condition that lasted for some 10 years of withdrawal from ordinary functioning in order to become adjusted to the spiritual state that had replaced the former consciousness. One aspect of this state of awareness was the capacity to discern greater significances within phenomena that were ordinarily observed. Thus, the interesting clinical technique of muscle testing revealed the missing link and bridge between the mind and the body, and between the manifest and the unmanifest. That which is invisible could now easily be made visible. This clinical phenomenon transcended the autonomic nervous system or the acupuncture system as an explanation of the link between psyche and soma. It was obvious that the muscle test response originated from the non-locality of consciousness, and that its former limitation to the investigation of local phenomena was an expression of the limitation of perception of the clinicians or experimenters. Although it is only because of non-duality that duality can be said to exist, muscle testing was the easiest and most practical phenomenon by which to take advantage of that reality. It became obvious that one could actually calibrate the different energy fields within consciousness and arrange them in a hierarchical scale, and when calibrated numerically, literally demonstrate the classical levels of consciousness as described since the beginning of time. The most astonishing aspect of the phenomenon was its capacity to instantly register the difference between truth and falsehood. This quality was beyond time and space and bypassed the human psyche and the minds of the individuals involved. It was a universal quality of consciousness, just as protoplasm has the universal qualities of reactivity to stimuli. Protoplasm reacts involuntarily to noxious or beneficial stimuli and differentiates between the two. It withdraws from that which is antithetical to life and is attracted to that which supports it. With lightning-like speed, the muscles of the body go instantly weak in the absence of truth. They go strong in the presence of truth or that which supports life. Everything in the world, including thoughts, concepts, substances, and images, calls forth a response that can be demonstrated as positive or negative. The response is not limited by time, space, distance, or personal opinion. With this simple tool, the exact nature of everything in the universe, anywhere in time, could be explained and documented. All that ever is or was, without exception, radiates forth a frequency and a vibration as a permanent imprint in the impersonal field of consciousness, and can be retrieved by this test through consciousness itself. The universe stood revealed. Secrets were no longer possible. It was apparent that every hair on one's head could indeed and in fact be counted, and that no sparrow could fall unnoticed. The all will be revealed had become a fact. Power versus force. A testing procedure was tried on literally thousands of test subjects, both individually and in groups. The results were universally concordant, irrespective of the age or mental state of the test subjects. The applications of the discovery were obvious in the fields of clinical activity, research, and spiritual teaching. The discoveries that ensued were recorded in the book Power versus Force, as well as in a PhD dissertation published as Qualitative and Quantitative Analysis and Calibration of the Levels of Human Consciousness. The purpose of the latter endeavour was to give additional credibility and scientific validation to the discoveries that were not explicable by ordinary human logic or the restrictions of Newtonian causality. Although the numerical scale of consciousness is logarithmic and numerically presented, the fields of consciousness that are referenced are non-linear and beyond the Newtonian paradigm of reality. The scale provides a link between the known and the unknown, between the manifest and the unmanifest, between duality and non-duality. The value of such a tool was so immense that many people went into paradigm shock when they first discovered this work. That anyone anywhere can instantly tell the truth about anyone, anything, or everything anywhere in time or space is a giant leap and can be disturbing at first to one's sense of reality. Everyone thinks they are completely separate and that their thoughts are private. One value of the research tool was that it could be used to check the truth and validity of its own research and experimental work. Thus, in Power versus Force, as in this book, every chapter was calibrated. The book as a whole was also calibrated and found to be in the 800s. So the inference was that the energy of the book itself would accomplish its own spread and communication. And as such, it did all by itself, with no advertising or promotion. It spread to other countries and continents and into other translations. It eventuated into widespread interest and distribution, and is used by study groups in colleges, universities, and research departments. On the map of the scale of consciousness, the level 600 indicates the crossing over from the perceptual world of duality to the non-perceptual world of non-duality. Interestingly enough, the muscle test and response itself calibrate at 600. This means that its true nature cannot really be comprehended by most people, although everyone can learn to use it in a practical manner. Interest in the book, Power versus Force, came primarily from spiritually interested people and groups, as well as from healers and those interested in studying consciousness itself. Although the book defines very profound benefits from applying the technique to many areas of ordinary human life, thus far there had been very little interest from those areas of society that could benefit instantly and to a great degree by the use of the technique. Society has yet to discover its profound benefits. And a few jumps and mistakes in my reading. I apologise. I did this quite spontaneously. Anyway, all the best. Lots of love. Bye.